A helicopter crashes and sinks in Oshkosh on a busy Saturday. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Andrea Hay. We begin with that breaking news from our crew on the scene as we learn new details about what happened, speaking with both witnesses and law enforcement. And officials say it went down about 12:30 this afternoon in the Fox River of Oshkosh near Mahoney's Restaurant and Bar. Sharon Bajenda joins us now live as that scene continues to unfold. Hi, Sharon.
Hey, Andrea, I'm here along the Fox River by the Wisconsin Street Bridge, and as you can see behind me, we do see Winnebago County Sheriff Office boats. They are right now doing a few recovery efforts. The Winnebago Sheriff's Office says calls came in around 12:30 this afternoon, and the area will remain active for the next couple of hours. Divers did go into the river around 4:30. Officials have not confirmed how many people were in the helicopter and if there are any deaths or injuries. They did say the channel can go as deep as 22 feet. Witnesses say the helicopter crash happened quickly. Authorities say boaters heading east and west on the Fox River are not allowed to cross the active scene, so they are being held up. Officials say they have a protocol in place on how to get the helicopter out.
I mean, we have EAA here every year, so we do this all the time. I don't want to say all the time, but it happens enough that we have a pretty well established protocol. There's usually a barge involved, there's wreckers involved, they have airbag things that they can raise boats with or raise anything really sunk with. So it's kind of a process that involves several different entities, and usually the FAA is involved because they want the whole thing as intact as it can be.
It was very small. We saw one guy hanging off the side taking pictures, and obviously there's another person flying it. So
we saw the blades hit the wires, and the helicopter went straight down like a lead rock, and went right like in a second. Hit the water and went and that was it. And then we just waited for the guys to come up because the doors were open on the helicopter, and nobody came up.
We'll continue to closely monitor this active scene, and we'll update the story as it develops. Reporting live in Oshkosh, Sharon Bajenda, Action 2 News. Andrea?
Thank you, Sharon. Police in Two Rivers make an arrest while they investigate a person found dead at a home this morning. First responders were called to a home on the city's north side at 5:30 this morning. They found a 52-year-old man unconscious, not breathing. They tried to revive him, but he was later pronounced dead. While his cause of death is unknown and still under investigation, Two Rivers police say someone was arrested on an unrelated charge. A former band director at a school in Washington County is headed for prison for sexually assaulting a student 18 years ago.
Mr. Hankey was my teacher. Teachers are supposed to be caring and professional. They are not supposed to manipulate and take advantage of their students for their own sexual gratification.
That was the victim, who was 17 years old in 2000 when she was molested by David Hankey, her band director at Slinger High School. In April, the retired music teacher was found guilty of sexual assault of an underage student.
I tried every day to be the best that I could be. Every day. And if I failed, again, all I can do is apologize.
Hankey got the maximum penalty of 10 years with 5 years in prison and 5 years extended supervision. Well, most of us will experience a relatively dry Sunday, but how soon could the hot weather and storms roll through? Let's get right to Storm Center 2 meteorologist David Ernst.
Sunday likely to be a little on the cooler side like today was, and then temperatures start to warm up towards the middle part of the week. Right now, not much going on around the Fox Cities, Green Bay, or Lakeshore areas on Storm Center 2 Pinpoint Digital Doppler, but on the left side of your screen, we do have some activity down around La Crosse, and strong thunderstorms and severe weather has fired up here our Storm Center 2 Viper across parts of southern Minnesota and northern Iowa. Tornado watch in effect there until 10 o'clock, but those storms not too likely to make their way towards us. What will end up happening is we'll see this activity start pushing off towards the south and the east. So the clouds will continue streaming in off of that disturbance, but I do not expect the severe weather itself to roll in. Again, the higher threat for that stays across parts of Iowa down into northern Illinois. Might have a few rain showers make it in with that disturbance overnight tonight, but most of you will be dry not only this evening but throughout the day on Sunday. We do have temperatures upper 60s and lower 70s for the most part right now. Over the next few hours, you're looking at those temperatures falling back through the 60s with mostly cloudy skies. We'll talk more about where we could see some rain showers on your Sunday coming up.
Thanks, David. And it certainly was beautiful weather to get outside. More than 12,000 people packed the streets of Green Bay this morning for the 42nd Bellin Run. New at 6, Jordan Betts find out why this long-standing tradition is so important to many.
It was a big day in Green Bay. People from around the country and Wisconsin came to run a 10K on a warm, sunny Saturday.
It's just such a great community event. It's basically a family event. It's a reunion event. It's the community coming out. Spectators line the whole 6.2 miles, as well as about 1,200 people volunteer to help us pull off the event.
Runners we talked to ran for many reasons, for themselves, others, and charities across the state, like My Team Triumph, giving anyone with a disability a chance to be part of a team.
Being in a race like this is so important for our captains because normally they're not able to participate in the community in a way that's really fun, energizing, encouraging. They're usually given an opportunity to be like in the back, of something.
But not at the Bellin Run.
I think they love the energy. They love the excitement. They love feeling like they're part of something, and just this experience in which they can forget about the challenges that they go through on a daily basis.
For George Weisner, he has competed in every single Bellin Run since the start in the 1970s. And he says there's one reason why he runs each year.
Cornerstone of the Bellin Run is community wellness. And by doing this, it helps reinforce a wellness in a type of a healthy lifestyle.
Autumn and her Angels from My Team Triumph finished first for their team, and her running mate said these races are something you never forget.
Oh, it's incredible. When we were lined up this morning, it was just everywhere. There's people everywhere, captains everywhere, and it's just so much joy that they bring.
In Green Bay, Jordan Betts, Action 2 News.
And congratulations to Risper Gasabwa of Kenya. She took home the win for the women with a time of 33 minutes and 24 seconds. This is her 6th win in the last 7 years. On the men's side, Brendan Gregg of Davis, California, he came in first for the whole race. He came in with a time of 29 minutes, 52 seconds. His sister Caitlin came in second among women with a time of 33 minutes and 30 seconds. And we are going to hear from Gregg later in sports. And still ahead, how a local venue used for music and theater transformed into a sports arena today. Plus, find out why. Winnebago officials say a man is dead after a helicopter crash in Oshkosh today. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Andrea Hay. Action 2 News was on the scene all day and night as witnesses and officials described to us what was happening as that plane went down in the Fox River. Officials say it went down about 12:30 this afternoon in the Fox River of Oshkosh near Mahoney's Restaurant and Bar. This video sent to us by a witness of that helicopter. Jake Vandervoort says he took this video just 30 minutes before the crash. Another witness, Isaac Jansen, tells Action 2 News when the helicopter crashed, it was en route to pick him up after refueling at Whitman Regional Airport. Jansen says the helicopter was being used to take photos of the Lake Winnebago Four Horsemen poker run. In tonight's top story, our own Sharon Bajenda spoke to witnesses and watched as that chopper was pulled from the water.
After a nearly 8-hour recovery effort, the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office recovered one body in a helicopter that crashed in the Fox River in Oshkosh. Witnesses who saw the crash say it happened in a matter of seconds.
It was just a splash and it went right in. That was it. There was no kind of explosion or anything. It just went in and went in the water and that was it. It was gone.
The Winnebago Sheriff's Office says calls came in around 12:30 this afternoon after the helicopter hit a power line, which slowed down the recovery process. Divers couldn't go into the river until 4:30.
We were out here all day and the recovery itself was hindered because the helicopter struck a power line and the power lines were live for quite some time.
Witnesses say they saw someone taking pictures in the helicopter, but officials can't confirm whether or not the helicopter was being flown recreationally.
High enough to go over these apartment buildings, but low enough to where we can see what he was doing.
Officials from the Winnebago Sheriff's Office say they're not aware of another body being in the river.
We know that there was one person for sure, and we recovered one person.
Utility crews are still out working on the power lines, but recovery efforts by the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office on the river have wrapped up. They say that investigation is still going, but the Federal Aviation Administration, as well as the National Transportation Safety Board, will be taking over this crash case. Reporting in Oshkosh, Sharon Bajenda, Action 2 News.
And it is a busy weekend on the Fox River, and this crash had an impact on people competing in Walleye Weekend Fishing Tournament in Fond du Lac because of blocked off waterways during that Fox River search and recovery this afternoon. Anglers could not make it back to the weighing station in Fond du Lac. Anglers instead had their fish weighed in Oshkosh. Walleye Weekend in Fond du Lac wraps up tomorrow night. Well, one person is dead after a motorcycle crash in Waushara County this afternoon. The Waushara County Sheriff's Office says it happened just before 3 this afternoon on 23rd Road in the town of Springwater. The motorcycle was the only vehicle involved. The driver was pronounced dead at the scene, and deputies plan to release that name on Monday morning. The sheriff's office has not released any other details of the crash as they continue in their investigation. Police in Two Rivers, meanwhile, make an arrest while they're investigating a person found dead at a home this morning. First responders were called to a home on the city's north side at 5:30 this morning. They found a 52-year-old man unconscious and not breathing. They tried to revive him, but he was later pronounced dead. While the cause of death is unknown and still under investigation, Two Rivers police say someone else was arrested on an unrelated charge. As he heads to Singapore for the historic summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, President Trump is lashing out at his G7 counterparts after leaving. After the president left the G7 summit, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Canada would likely move forward with retaliatory tariffs on July 1st, and the Canada will not be pushed around by the United States.
I reiterated to President Trump that these tariffs threaten to harm industry and workers on both sides of our border. I stand ready to work closely with the President to resolve this dispute swiftly.
President Trump later tweeted out the U.S. will no longer endorse the G7 that was agreed to today, calling Trudeau weak and dishonest. Earlier, the president also talked about North Korea, saying Kim Jong-un has one shot and that he will know quickly if Kim is serious.
But I think I'll know pretty quickly whether or not, in my opinion, something positive will happen. And if I think it won't happen, I'm not going to waste my time. I don't want to waste his time.
President Trump is set to meet Kim Jong-un face-to-face on Tuesday. U.S. officials have established a contingency plan for a potential second day of discussions between Trump and Kim, depending on how their first meeting goes. Turning to weather, and it was a gorgeous day out there for all the events. Let's get right to Storm Center 2 meteorologist David Ernst with a sneak peek into the future.
Yeah, a dry day today, a fair amount of cloud cover, and that will be the case again on Sunday, but there is, well, likely that most of you will stay dry for a good part of the day. Storm Center 2 pinpoint digital Doppler radar, though, does show some rain showers pushing into southwestern parts of the state. Now, the more significant weather threat is going to be dropping southward through parts of Iowa and into northern Illinois. Storm Center 2 Viper showing a number of severe thunderstorm warnings ongoing right now, and those storms are expected to essentially track towards the southeast. So right along this severe thunderstorm watch box, that's where the roughest weather is going to head well to our south. We could see a few of these rain showers move in overnight tonight, but that's probably all you would be dealing with for southern areas is just a little bit of rainfall. Probably don't even hear any thunder as those storms pass well to our south. Temperatures right now, low 60s and mid 60s for the most part, even a few upper 60s still on the board. 68 right now in Waupaca, 65 in Green Bay. Temperatures heading out the door tomorrow, close to 60 degrees at 7 a.m. More clouds than sunshine, especially from Green Bay and Appleton southward. More sunshine to the north. We'll talk about a better chance for rain across all of the area coming in early in your next work week. The details in just a few minutes.
Thanks, David. Still ahead, how a local venue used for music and theater transferred
30 starts now.
Good evening. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. I'm Andrea Hay. We are learning new details tonight about a helicopter that crashed into power lines and sunk into the Fox River yesterday afternoon in downtown Oshkosh. As we first reported to you yesterday, several witnesses tell us the helicopter hit a power line over the river and crashed near the Wisconsin Street Bridge. We were there last night while crews pulled out the aircraft's wreckage, and with it, the pilot, 27-year-old Jonathan Barr of Platteville. Barr had been hired to fly photographers over Lake Winnebago during the Four Horsemen poker run. Witnesses have been watching as a photographer leaned out of the aircraft and took pictures. But Action 2 News has learned that photographer on board was actually dropped off minutes before the helicopter crashed. That photographer speaking to us tonight about what happened.
I fly almost every weekend in a variety of helicopters, and I'm very familiar with aviation in general, so it was nothing out of the ordinary. We had plenty of fuel when we landed for him to get to the airport, which I think was just about 10 minutes away or so.
The FAA and NTSB are investigating. This is the second deadly helicopter crash in Wisconsin this year. And yesterday, the crash caused some walleye weekend anglers to be stuck on the Fox River after the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office had to stop boat traffic for hours. New at 5:30, Sharon Bagenda tells us how the big competition was affected.
One of Wisconsin's longest running community fishing tournaments, Walleye Weekend, was affected by yesterday's helicopter crash. Directors here say they had to send a team up to Oshkosh so anglers could get checked in and have their fish weighed. Michelle Kilburn says she had to come up with a quick plan after finding out more than 10 teams were stuck in Oshkosh.
I sent a crew up there to do a check-in, and we set up a set of scales that were collaborated with this set of scales we have down here, and we were able to weigh in the fish. We also made arrangements for a bus actually to make sure that one of the partners could come down, get the rig or get the trailer in the truck, and then go back and get their rigs.
Tim Ferris fished the mudflats in Oshkosh yesterday but wasn't affected by the river traffic being shut down. Still, he says the crash was on his mind throughout the day.
Thinking about the helicopters that were flying over all day long, and you know, I feel very bad for the people that got involved, and then the other guys that were fishing up there that had to stop and were unable to get down here.
It was a very tragic accident, something that was completely unexpected, so we just did our best to make sure that the fish were taken care of, the anglers were taken care of, and that their weights could be contributed to the whole weekend.
Anglers say overall Walleye Weekend still proved to be successful.
I really like this tournament a lot. Even though the wind was a pain, we still did good and had a really good time.
Kilburn says aside from yesterday's tragic accident, Walleye Weekend's 40th anniversary still ended on a good note, with no anglers getting disqualified from yesterday's helicopter crash. Reporting in Fond du Lac, Sharon Bagenda, Action 2 News.
4 people are dead tonight after a plane crashed at the Monroe Airport in Greene County. The sheriff's office says all 4 people on board were family members flying to Monroe from Kenosha. Shortly after noon today, that plane reported losing power and landed hard in a field north of the airport, bursting into flames. No one on board survived. And turning to weather now, it has not been a particularly hot or cold weekend. Let's get
My phone started ringing like crazy, and people were asking if I was okay or what the story was. And
the photographer who got off the helicopter right before it crashed tells Action 2 News he's shaken by the death of his pilot. Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Andrea Hay. Action 2 News was there on the scene last night as crews pulled that aircraft out of the water. We learned the pilot of that helicopter, 27-year-old Jonathan Barr of Plattsville, died in the crash. Barr was hired to fly photographers over Lake Winnebago during the Four Horsemen poker run. The helicopter crashed into power lines yesterday afternoon and sunk into the Fox River in downtown Oshkosh. Tonight, Sharon Bagenda continues our coverage with the crash's impact.
Witnesses said yesterday they saw 2 people in that helicopter, a pilot and a photographer, leaning out of the aircraft taking pictures. That photographer was Pete Bowden, and it turns out he was dropped off minutes before the helicopter crashed.
we'd finished about half the event, and at that point decided to get fuel. Pilot dropped me back off, and probably 5 minutes later or something, the guy came up and says, a helicopter just crashed.
Bowden says he didn't see anything out of the ordinary that day, adding he does this almost every weekend in the summertime.
Didn't know the pilot real well. I just had met him that day, so but my time flying with him, it was a good experience. I've flown with a lot of pilots, and I was very comfortable with his abilities and everything.
After hearing about the accident, Bowden was in shock.
Sort of disbelief, but at the same time, it's like, whoa, it just isn't my time to go yet.
The helicopter crash caused law enforcement to stop boat traffic on the Fox River for hours. One of Wisconsin's longest-running community fishing tournaments, Walleye Weekend, was affected by yesterday's helicopter crash. Directors here say they had to send a team up to Oshkosh so anglers could get checked in and have their fish weighed.
It was a very tragic accident, something that was completely unexpected, so we just did our best to make sure that the fish were taken care of, the anglers were taken care of, and that their weights could be contributed to the whole full weekend.
The news of the crash had spread throughout the tournament.
I heard there was a crash and it hit power lines and some were stuck up in Oshkosh.
I heard about the helicopter crash from the EMT up on the point there, and pretty horrible thing that happened. Never wished for anything like that to happen, and pretty scary.
The ongoing helicopter crash investigation has been turned over to the FAA and NTSB. Sharon Bagenda, Action 2 News.
We are turning to weather now, and the forecast gets a little more exciting this week. Let's get right to Storm Center 2 meteorologist David Ernst.
Yeah, weather does get a little more active heading into tomorrow night and on Tuesday, but right now, Storm Center 2 Viper is all quiet. Should remain that way over the course of the night. We did see a fair amount of cloud cover over northeastern parts of Wisconsin, or at least from Green Bay southward for much of the day today, but those clouds are thinning out. But notice, line of storms already starting to set up to our west in the Dakotas. That system is headed this way, but it's not going to have nearly the energy by the time it gets here. So we will have a higher chance for storms, especially into Tuesday, but the severe weather outlook remains low. Of course, we'll break that down in more detail coming up with Storm Center 2 Pinpoint Predictor. Right now, upper 50s right along the lake shore, some low 60s though still in Door County, mid 60s for much of the rest of the area. We'll see those temperatures slowly drop overnight tonight as skies continue clearing out. A mild morning though, upper 50s at 7 a.m. Mostly sunny through the day. A warmer afternoon despite stronger winds. We'll get those highs into the upper 70s, maybe even a few 80s. Out on the water though, could be a little bit choppy. East wind around 10 to 15 miles per hour, 2 to 4 foot waves. We'll talk more about those storms coming in early in the work week. Details coming up.
Thanks, David. With just 2 days until the special election for Wisconsin's first Senate district, many in the country are looking at Wisconsin as a possible preview of November. Craig Gilbert of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel accompanied both Republican Andre Jacques and Democrat Caleb Frostman as they went door to door leading up to the election. He says Jacques campaigned to Republican voters in his home district of De Pere, where many Republicans brought up Governor Walker, while Frostman talked to Democratic voters in Sturgeon Bay who brought up President Trump. Although some have said this special election could indicate a blue wave, Gilbert says to be careful reading into that.
The polls that Marquette Law School has done and the polls nationally suggest that there is an enthusiasm gap right now between Democrats and Republicans. But that may be all it tells you, because you know, there were 100,000 people in this district that voted in the presidential race, and there were about 80,000 that voted in the governor's race. I mean, there's going to be 10 or 20,000 voting in this special election, so a much smaller electorate. These are Republican districts. They can elect a Democrat in a low turnout election if there's a turnout differential. It's much harder for a Democrat to win in a big turnout election.
Meanwhile, Republican state senator and U.S. Senate candidate Leah Vukmir was also on up front, saying her campaign is resonating with the grassroots movement. Last month, Vukmir won the endorsement of the state party convention over her opponent, Marine Kevin Nicholson, with 73% of the delegates. Vukmir says her track record as a conservative is the best chance to defeat incumbent Democrat Tammy Baldwin.
And my conservative credentials are there. No one has to question whether or not I will stand strong. No one will have to question whether or not I am going to cave under the pressure. After everything we have been through here in Wisconsin, it's pretty clear I'm not someone who's going to easily cave.
Senator Baldwin was in Milwaukee this weekend at a rally. She and California Democratic Senator Kamala Harris talked about working together with their Republican counterparts on jobs and health care.
And that's actually another place that I worked across the aisle with John McCain. He and I introduced the Fair Drug Pricing Act, which would require that the companies justify what they're doing and be totally transparent.
Baldwin will face the winner of the August Republican primary between Vukmir and Nicholson. In less than 24 hours, President Donald Trump will sit down with Kim Jong-un in a historic summit to bring peace